Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis alongside Daylan Flowers. We're going to be talking a little bit of Ole Miss sports as we normally do on this channel. How you doing, Daylan?
I'm doing well, my friend. Can't complain at all.
Yeah, we're not going to spend too much time on the Georgia game because it kind of is what it is. But we're going to move on and talk because basketball season, both men's and women's basketball, has started this season. We talked a little bit about Coach Yo in the last episode. Let's start off with Chris Beard's unit. What do you notice about that team?
First two games so far, I'm noticing a different mindset from the players, a good mindset. I think they are involved a lot more than they were last year. I think the team chemistry has been built pretty well so far. Now, look, I know people say we've struggled so far through the first two games, and that's understandable. I think Alabama State is a really good basketball team. I know some of their coaches, they have a lot of go-getter players on their teams, a lot of guys that play 200% the whole game. So I expected that game to be a dogfight. And I think Chris Beard expected these two games to be a dogfight. Look, you play these kind of first early season games, a lot of the fans think, oh, these are easy teams. This should be, a blowout wins. But it's also a mark for our coaches to see where our players at and what kind of rotations work the best before we get into conference play. Now, look, I think Alan Flanagan has been the best player in our team so far. Little Rock native Arkansas like myself, and his dad Wes has been brought along on the staff with Coach Beard, who are two great coaches who spent time at UALR. He has evolved his game so much. I've seen through the first three games really, since he's been in Auburn. I think he is kind of matured in terms of being in front of the spotlight, and I think he's going to continue maturing with his game as well. I think one of the big spots for our team that a lot of people are talking about is Jamarion Sharp. Of course, his 7'5" stature. What can he bring to our offense and our defense? I think Chris Beard has brought him in to utilize our rebounding machines because that was a bit of a question mark, I thought, in my opinion, last year, especially allowing offensive rebounds last year. And he brought in some other guys, to Rashad Marshall as well, to kind of control that paint game and allow us to get more rebounds. So that then rebounds are a big part of the game, controlling our tempo. So those are some few things I've seen so far. Matthew Morrell, of course, back as well. I think he's going to have a good year. He's slowly developing a better jump shot as well, which I think is just the missing piece for him to be a really elite player. And I think just every player that, we had last year in this comeback, or even a lot of our transfers, they are seeing a quick jump in their development and maturity, which I think is going to help us in terms of going into SEC play coming soon.
A really interesting thing, the men's team is about 5 or 6 minutes to go against Eastern Washington. It's almost like a switch flip for them. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden it cleaned up. It started looking more like it's supposed to look. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see the game coming up tomorrow night, if that is continued or it's going to be another situation where that switch gets flipped a little bit earlier. But, I mean, you could see at the end of the game how this is supposed to look. Yeah. They just need to get kind of consistent doing that.
Yeah, and I think, what we saw closer to that end of the game it's just pure coaching. I think we have developed a great characteristic from our coaches, and they have developed a good mindset from our players. Look, I think they told them, this game hasn't gone our way so far, but how do you respond in this moment? Now, times like this and adversity like this is how your name gets put in the big conversation of elite players. And I think our players responded pretty good to that. I think as well, like you just said, we have to start the game from the minute the clock goes off until the end. You have to continue fighting. We can't just do that against bigger teams coming up soon, late in the half. Another thing I would like to continue to see is our intensity. I think we've done a good job at getting to the line, but we have to make our free throws. We get to the line and we cause traffic, but we have to make those free throws. And I think that's an easy, simple part of the game that will allow us to get more advantage in the games. But I think that's going to be a big key for us. But I think the players have bought in very quickly into what Coach Beard has brought into. And I think that's very important, not only for this year, but going into the coming years, because he has an identity and he has a plan and he knows exactly what he wants from each player and how he wants to run his system. And when players see that, they believe and they buy in as well. That's very important if you want to be successful in basketball.
Switching over to the women's side of the game, the Lady Rebels fell from number 12 to number 23 after a loss to Oklahoma. Oklahoma was unranked, but UConn had an unranked loss to an unranked opponent as well. They fell from 2 to 8. I think there's a little bit of bias going on that UConn is just a name that everybody knows, and Ole Miss is just somebody you can just play with a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, especially in recent memory, before Coach Yo here, we really hadn't had any success since the early 2000s. Now we've been to a couple of NCAA tournaments, went to the Sweet 16 last year. I think a big frustration point for a lot of our fans is we weren't ranked at all last year throughout the whole season. We weren't ranked not one time. And then we get to the AP rankings, preseason rankings this year, we're ranked 12, 13, and then we lose to OU, who's a really good team. I know they're unranked, but they have a lot of good talent. Have a 5-star and a 4-star guards on their team. Really good team. And then we go all the way down to 23. So it's just weird. I know people are kind of questioning what is going on with those things, but we also have a lot to work on. I think our post defense needs to improve, especially what I saw against Oklahoma. We also had to control defending the off-ball passes. Well, that OU had a lot of backdoor passes. They really gave them maybe 12 to 15 points, which allowed us to kind of be stale on the defensive side of the ball. Another question mark we had against OU was shooting the ball. Shooting behind the arc I think we shot 26% against Oklahoma, which is unacceptable. And I think that's something that we are trying to see improvement from last year. And so far, we just haven't seen it. And I think consistency is going to be key. We have a bad shooting out like that, but how do you go out and practice the next couple of days and continue just trying to find your rhythm and keep believing in your shot? And that's all about coaching as well. How are our coaches implementing in our girls? Okay, we had a bad game, but what can we learn? What can we learn from film? What can we learn from ourselves? And then implement it going forward. I think that's going to be a big key. How do our girls respond? Again, OU had a really good game, controlled their tempo really well, played inside the post really well. And we missed a lot of free throws as well, which caused us a lot of havoc. But we only lost by 10 points with all that saying, to a really good OU team. So we have some things to work on. It's going to be a long season. But I'm still in very much belief for this team. Coach O's added a lot of talent, and I think her girls are in a lot of belief too. Look, you change a program like she has very quickly into what it has become now, and she's gaining a lot of respect in the transfer portal and the recruiting world too. You have players that believe in you, and I know she believes in her players. So it's just going to be a continued, consistent find. I'm not concerned about the girls at all. It's just a little bump in the road, and they're going to get over it so far. So yeah.
All right, so we're going to turn our attention to the football field after starting out with basketball. It's senior day this weekend before the game with the ULM Warhawks. This is going to be kind of a bring your own energy type of game. Yeah. I expect Ole Miss to really be okay. They're like a 35.5-point favorite at this moment on FanDuel. But this is a game, in my opinion, Walker Howard needs to play in this game. Mm-hmm. Ole Miss needs to find a way, jump on, get there. Walker Howard needs to get snaps this football game.
I absolutely agree with you. And I wasn't going to say this on video, but I thought that we might see him play a little bit against Georgia, honestly. And that's just my personal opinion. You may disagree and others may disagree. But I thought that we might see that happen. Look, even if Jackson does decide to come back next year, I think it's still best to say we need to continue getting Walker Howard as many reps as possible for the upcoming season. And I think that not only will that help develop his maturity on the field, but it'll also build a sense of confidence and respect between him and our receivers. And I think that's going to be important, even if Dart does come back next year. This is a game that, like you just said, is going to have to be a self-motivation game for the players and coaches. It's Thanksgiving weekend. I know a lot of students are probably going to be going out early. We're coming off a frustrating loss this past weekend. So how do the players respond? The last home game. I see no problem with this game this weekend, but I also would like to see, like you said, some other players that really may have not seen the field so far a lot this year, and maybe we may see them more next year. How do they get into the game and make some plays happen and make some initiative for their names? I think that's going to be big for each player that steps up this weekend.
And after that is the Mississippi State game, man. Mm-hmm. Mississippi State fired their coach after 10 games. He got 10 games to coach football. He's not even going to get to coach his first Egg Bowl, and the state relieved him of his duty. This is a situation that shows how much of a disarray and how disorganized this athletic department is. And I'm putting out a video tomorrow. This Egg Bowl is a chance for Ole Miss to go out and absolutely bury Mississippi State in the same way that Georgia has buried Georgia Tech, Alabama has done to Auburn. That type of relationship in this rivalry starts next Thursday night.
Absolutely. And rest in peace to Mike Leach, who was one of my favorite coaches and people ever. But our players should come into this game against Mississippi State frustrated. This is a team that came in our home last year and beat us. I think they should come in with the mindset that we want to dominate them. This is our team that, this in-state, their fans talk so much about us. Let's give them something to talk about. What can we use to benefit us in a tough road environment? Now, look, I know Zach Arnett is gone now, and, he had a hard time this season. I don't agree with the firing just off, 10 games so far, but it is what it is. How do we combine what we saw against Georgia and ULM to go into that game? I think one of the things I talked about last week is how do we stop the run? And I think that's going to be big on defense. Can we control their run game, which allows us to play man more, play in coverage better? And I think that's going to be beneficial for us on the defensive side of the ball. On the offense, how can we run the ball well? I think that opens up our offense as well when Q and Ulysses Bentley and even Dart get going on the run game, and that gives them a bit of confidence so we can open up the play action pass and the deep ball. So it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a fun environment for our players, and I would love to, squeeze out of Starkville with a win, man. It's going to be a fun one, and hopefully we can get these last 2 wins and get some double-digit wins on the regular season this year.
And I'm thinking about this is the perfect time. Ole Miss fans are pretty legendary for not going to that football game because of just everything that's around it. Not many Ole Miss fans go to that game. If you're going to go to Starkville to an Ole Miss Mississippi State game, this is kind of the year to go, Daylan.
Yeah, it is. I know you've been tweeting about it all day. Like the ticket prices are cheap right now, and that's because they have a very struggling football team this year, and they haven't really found an identity. So yeah, like Steven said, Ole Miss fans, get down to Starkville, travel with the squad. They love our support. I think that helps them out in road environments, is our support being with them. That gives them a boost of energy and confidence. So get down there, man. If you've never been to Starkville, get a chance to go down there, feel the environment, and also get out there to see one of our best football teams in a long time play some football, man. I know, again, we had a disappointing weekend this weekend. But at the end of the day, we have a chance to go 10-2. And right now, with the progression we're seeing so far in the past couple of years, that's absolutely a successful season. And I couldn't be happier for where we are right now.
Yeah, in my opinion, this needs to be like one of the loudest "we just beat the hell out of you" at the end when they played Gary Glitter.
Yeah,
I think Ole Miss needs to go in there and fill it up. And at the end of the game, like there's 30,000 people in the stadium and 16,000 people are Ole Miss fans. I think that needs to be the situations going on, to the point where if you start doing hotty toddy, they just have the reaction to ring their cowbells. Start doing hotty toddy when Mississippi State's offense is actually under center getting ready to snap the ball, because they will ring their cowbells when you start hotty toddy. I think we need to play a little 4D chess, because honestly, we can.
Yeah, and honestly, I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if we do have a really good traveling crowd. We've, throughout our road games this year, Georgia, Auburn, Bama, and Tulane, our fans have traveled really well this year. And I think that's just a belief that we have a really good football team. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have a good emergence of crowds on that Thanksgiving Day. And I think that is going to also help benefit us for recruits. What kind of recruits are going to be at that game, and they see so many Rebel fans. They're like, okay, maybe I need to go invest in a quality fan base like that. So it's going to be a fun game for us, and I think our fans will enjoy it as well. Just getting a chance to beat up on state, I know that's always fun for us as well.
Yeah, something tells me this is going to be a little bit personal, especially for that team that lost the game last year.
Yeah,
and the funny thing about that is even the most ardent of state fans will tell you that they did not think they were winning that football game.
Yeah, I don't think we should have lost that game. I'm happy Leach got his final win, but it was a game that I thought we had beat ourselves up a lot in terms of just penalties, and also kind of failing to find a good passing rhythm during that game last year. And again, we had a lot of different drama things going on that maybe have collided with the team, but I think, now we're going forward. I think we're a little bit more focused on the true goal, which is to continue winning throughout the rest of the season. So I'm not really concerned about how we go up against these Bulldogs in a couple of weeks.
And what Mississippi State should be at least prepared for. Yeah. Not necessarily expecting that, but they need to be prepared for the fact that Ole Miss is in a fight with Missouri, potentially for the last Access New Year's Six bowl spot. Yes. So Ole Miss is going to need to run up scores.
Yes, absolutely, man. We want to. It's like you just said. We want a New Year's Day game. I think that will also give us a little bit notoriety for recruiting as well. But that's what we want right now. I think this last week, our players talked about what's the expectation of our team, what's the goal for these players, and it's very high. And so we should come out these next 2 games and fully control our game and play our type of football, and that's really to dominate teams. So yeah, I really expect us these next 2 weeks to play some of our best football that we've really seen all season, if I'm being honest with you.
All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Daylan Flowers joins us like he does every week. Daylan, would you have anything going on your show?
So actually, yeah, I'll make an announcement here. So people, if you keep up with my show, if you don't, I took a hiatus. I finished season 3 in February, and I have taken since then months off to just kind of refresh my mind, get my body back in the shape that I wanted to be, and also join Steven if you've seen me so far in football season, even in the spring a little bit. The show will be coming back in January. I haven't decided an exact date. So season 4 will be starting in January. That is my goal. And so that's been my expectation. That's been my rhythm I've been working on behind closed doors. So a little sneak peek coming in soon. But yeah, that's my expectation for the show right now. We'll be back in January with it.
All right. Check out Daylan Flowers and his own podcast as well. Until then, he will be joining us as he always does, talking Ole Miss sports as well. I'm Stephen Willis. I hope everybody has had a good day. It's at least as good as a Monday can be. And we'll see you later.